fundamentals are things that never go away, right? The fundamental is there all the time, but a lot of people confuse the two. They think that that you practice the fundamentals when you're at a basic level, but then when you're intermediate or advanced, somehow you're doing something else, and that's dead wrong. It's dead wrong. You talk to any seasoned fighter, and they'll tell you, well, yeah, there's all these techniques, but I only use like 3 of them, right? But those 3 techniques, I use them offensively in more than one structure when it comes to my offense. I learn how to use them counter offensively, again, in more than one structure when it comes to my counter offense. So if I have 3 techniques and I'm learning 5 methods of attack and 5 methods of counter offense, then I was never any good at math, but that is at least 30 things that I can be practicing. Right?
Yeah, correct. Now,
yeah.
I wanted to take these concepts and bring them back into the present condition of combat sports, example, MMA, UFC. There are a lot of people now that are pretty famous, training a lot of mixed martial artists that have been influenced by JKD, and I'll throw you some names, and then you can give me your input. Okay. Person that I look at all the time, Eric Paulson.
Yeah.
And he trained Josh Barnett, and they've trained a lot of MMA fighters.
Yeah. So I actually made some notes to be on the program with you, but now my computer did an update, and I cannot pull up any of my Microsoft Word notes. So yeah. But let me try to do from memory. So Paulson is behind Josh Barnett, Brock Lesnar, I think Sean Shirk.
Yes.
It's between Eric and Greg Nelson. Greg Nelson is behind Sean Shirk to a certain extent. Rose Namajunas.
Yes.
Right. Then my colleague Kevin Seaman in upstate New York, he has worked with John Jones. As a matter of fact, I think he might have been John Jones's initial instructor. Then Ron Kosakowski in Connecticut, his son, Jesse James, he's a top-notch fighter in Bellator, right? So JKD does have an influence in the MMA world, but there's nobody who goes in and they say, well, what's his style? His style is Jeet Kune Do, because the art itself is not designed, right, for MMA. But aspects of the art, aspects of how to train the art, even if it's just the aspect of creativity for somebody like Eric Paulson, because that guy is a certifiable mad genius. Okay, right? So Eric's method of combat submission wrestling epitomizes a Jeet Kune Do idea of using no fixed way as way. You see, because you could show Eric a technique from Indonesian Pencak Silat, and Eric immediately can see how he could tie that in. If he shoots in and does a single or a double leg takedown, he can see a way to end up in Pencak Silat.
Right? Yeah, that's one of the things that I appreciate about him, and I think that's where I'm at now, and that's why we try to, even in our event, we try to make it varied, because again, I see the fundamentals, the basics, and now what we're talking about, the reason they can use, the reason they're using these concepts of Jeet Kune Do, you know what, I'm going to use the word tactics. Mm-hmm. And it's good because this is where I get excited, because I like to see different tactics. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to go in there in a fight and see the same thing that's been doing for the 50 years that is not even working effectively. You know, you see the evolution of tactics, and I think that's where you see it in MMA. Is it evolved the tactics because it's giving them a different frame of mind to look from.
Yeah. Have you seen now how a lot of people are not just trading punches back and forth. A lot of people now are trapping, and and that's something that if we're honest about it, who popularized that? Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. You set up like this, and then you trap the guy, and you knock the
guess what?
snot out of him.
Later on, I'm going to get into that, because you have Tony Ferguson that just fought. You have a lot of them that you can see him actually in the video clips that you'll see in a wooden dummy, working the trapping and what I call crossing, which it came from there, which it came from there. So they're developing their tactics from these concepts.
Yeah.
Let me throw you another name, which a lot of people don't know, is there's a gentleman that started a international franchise of SBG, Straight Blast Gyms, Matt Thornton.
Well, I don't know who would be these people that don't know who Matt Thornton is.
Okay. And he was the one that got together with John Kavanaugh, who is McGregor's coach.
Exactly.
Okay. And he has a Jeet Kune Do background. See, because people say, "Oh yeah, McGregor. Oh, I love McGregor." Okay, who's his coach?
Do the research.
Yeah.
See, just go. All they got to do, go one step backwards. So you don't go McGregor and then you go forward with McGregor. Oh, what's his record? Who's he fighting next? Who's been talking trash about him? When is he going to be on Joe Rogan? What's Dana White thinking about? No, forget all that nonsense. Go backwards. Who coached him? John Kavanaugh. Who the heck is John Kavanaugh? What the heck is this SBG of Ireland? What's SBG? Straight Blast? What the heck is a straight blast? Oh, that's when you see Bruce Lee go bang, bang, bang like this. Oh, you mean the same thing that you see Donnie Yen do in the Wing Chun movies? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? I think that his training approach, their training approach, let me tell you, for combat sports, for martial arts, is pretty genius. I've been researching a lot. And you know what I think? And maybe I'm wrong, but this is my understanding at this point in time. I think what helped them come up with these concepts of training was the Jeet Kune Do Bruce Lee mindset.
Yes, because so if you remember, I didn't realize when you said that you had been listening to my program, I didn't realize that you meant today's program, right? So it's a thing that I just talked about, the stages of a technique, right? The ultimate stage of a technique is application under fighting conditions. So once you understand Bruce Lee's approach to training, to the stages of a technique or the stages of synchronization as a fighter, as a martial artist, and you understand that application under fighting condition is the ultimate level, now you know how to train. You know how to see. And so 50 years ago, that was his problem with the classical arts. The classical arts were not training realistically in his estimation, right? Now, that doesn't mean that Bruce Lee thought that there was nobody 50 years ago who could defend themselves. Come on, that's not it. It's just that to his mind, they put an emphasis on some things that he didn't want to emphasize.
Well, I can, if I may interject, and I affirm that because, okay, let me put myself in a classical kung fu Chinese martial arts, Bagua for example. Mm-hmm. Okay. What people have to understand, if you do the research, China had a cultural revolution. You weren't even allowed to practice martial arts. So when they did bring martial arts back, it was for what? Entertainment, performances.
Right.
Okay. So it lost some of that practicality. Like you said, there were guys still practicing in their backyard, killing themselves. Okay. Mm-hmm. But a lot was lost.
Yes.
Like a lot has been lost in a lot of martial arts.
Yes.
And to the point of training methodology. This is a discussion that I was having with my twin brother. You know him also. I was telling him something that I discovered without giving secrets. If you want the secrets, you got to reach out to Dwight and myself, and we'll give it to you. I told him, have you noticed that everybody trains, let's say, a right cross, but when they get in the cage, they can't pull off the right cross? So there's a missing link from training the technique to actually applying that technique. And what is that missing link? And what I realized is the progression of training. There's a missing link in the progression of training. So you got to a very important point that I try to talk to other coaches as I train fighters, no matter what you're training. Right. I don't care if it's boxing, I don't care if it's MMA, I don't care if it's Bagua Kung Fu. There has to be a progression of training. Yeah. And what quantifies that? Can you pull it off in combat?
Right. Yeah. So here I'm gonna if I can find the page, because okay, there we go. So here's another Jeet Kune Do book, right?
Yes.
Sun Fan Jeet Kune Do, the textbook, and towards the end, because it's way down here at the bottom, at the back of the book, there's a thing called progressive sparring drills. So if I want my fighter to be able to pull off the cross, guess what? We have training sessions set up where that's his only responsibility. Try to hit with the cross, nothing else, right? So we could set it up where, based on what level of training it is we're putting, what level of pressure we want to put the fighter under. If I could have his training partner be a boxer, so all you'll do is punch at him, but all he can do is return the cross, right? Or you might have the other guy, he can do everything. He can go through the 4 skills. He can kick, punch, trap, grapple, but all you can do is to work the cross. You do something like that, he's going to get a superb education in how to use the cross.
Right. Well, I have a terminology for that, and it's because you're my friend. I'll put out the secrets in public. I call that a transitionary drill.
Uh-huh.
This is where I see a lot of things missing. Not enough transitionary drills. I had the discussion with my brother, who I love, but we have these heated discussions.
Good.
Because I was saying, I see these guys fighting, they're sparring, full blast, hard, all the time. So they're making the same mistake over and over again.
Yes.
Getting fear reactivity.
Yes.
Where is the transitionary drill? Where is the methodology of training? Is that going to really, because listen, I'm old school. I came from there. Also, Scott Astley, my karate brother, is a world kickboxing champion, who, by the way, leads with a strong hand. Okay. And I look back at that and I said, what did that give me? That gave me concussions, more fear reactivity.
Right.
So there has to be, and it is happening. It is happening, and we're having this discussion. Better transition practice methods. Better practice methods. What's your idea about that sparring full blast, not spar, or some people say don't spar at all?
Yeah. I'm a big proponent of sparring drills, and I take that because for a lot of us in the JKD world, the combat sport, our combat sport introduction was through Ajarn Surachai Surasu and Muay Thai, right? So my first exposure to Thai boxing was in 1984 through Dan and Asano. And then in 1985, I started officially training in Muay Thai. So that means that I have Thai boxing shorts that are older than some of our students, right? I have groin cups that are older than these people now.
Yeah, and what's funny is that now you see people saying, "Oh, we're doing on Monday we do Muay Thai, on Wednesday we do this, we cross train," and I'm thinking, okay, Moses School back in Northwest in the 80s. Dwight Woods would come by, Gus Rubin would come by, all these come by, and What do you mean? We were cross-training and researching because when you're fighting and you have to fight to defend yourself or anything, you're gonna cross-train, you're gonna research, you're gonna do what you need to do
Right.
to be able to be proficient.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, JKD was cross-training before cross-training was even a thing. You see, because we were always seeking proficiency in skills, empty hands and weaponry, and then in the empty hand skills, kick, punch, trap, grapple. That's all there is to it.
You just said something right there about cross training, and that's the new word. I had discussion with somebody. They said, "Well, now you have your system, natural motion system, and you're the founder." And I said, "Yes, you're correct." So you're not traditional anymore. And I said, "Okay." Higoro Kano, the founder of judo, studied from all these schools, and then based on his understanding, expressed it this way and called it this. Jinkin Funakoshi, the creator of Shotokan, studied from these Okinawa masters and came from China, Kung Fu came to Okinawa, and based on the understanding, created Shotokan.
Right.
So based on that premise, I am very classical and very traditional.
Yes.
Because I studied with all these masters,
yeah.
And then I formulated based on my understanding, my expression.
Yeah.
That is what every founder of every system has done.
It's the difference between traditional and traditionalist. You see, because traditionalism doesn't allow you to look at other things. Traditional has always been look at other things, right? There's no traditional art that just came out of nowhere like this, completely uninfluenced by anything else. But when a traditionalist thinking person gets his hands on that, and then he's like, it's just this. No, we're not looking at anything else. That's where they make the mistake.
And look, let me add to that. And you know what I found frustrating? Here comes 2020, 40 years later, mixed martial arts. And I said, okay, we're going to go from essence to evolution to innovation. Oh, this is exciting times. And we're back in a box. We went back to styles, labels, and techniques.
Yes.
It is so hard for people to. So what you said is correct. They kept that traditionalist mentality, and they're not.
It's hard. It's hard to avoid that, because to avoid that, you have to be almost completely free of any attachments. And that's a hard thing to pull off.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, one of the ways that I found a mechanism in my philosophy is, for example, today, this conversation with you, I decided that I was going to put these issues forward with different masters, different instructors, Sifus, and we were going to have discussions, and not who was going to win a discussion, but how can this discussion give me depth understanding for depth practice?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
see, Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I said, so it's objective. The objective of 305 Fights is to come together and promote the martial arts.
Right. Yeah. But see, it's like Inosanto says at the end of his one of his two appearances on the BBC documentary from 1982. He says, if you're secure in your knowledge, you don't have to hide it. You can just bring it out. You see, not enough people are secure enough in their knowledge. So they're like, well, I don't want to be found wanting. You know, I don't want to be found lacking in anything. It's because they forget that before we're anything else, we're human. Right? So which means that by nature, by design, we're actually fallible, right? There's actually something, we're not yet perfect, right? So you know, and more people believe that there is more to be gained through strife than through cooperation. That's what most people have been taught to think that way. You see? So then it's like, well, I have an issue and I have a fight with this guy and I have a fight with this style and that style and whatever. When you understand and when you're secure in who you are and what you know, you can get along with anybody.
That's why I think what we're doing today, which is good, is we're making certain definitions and cataloging things. And that's very important because, for example, my teacher says, in our philosophy, we do not follow the philosophy of competition because we really don't compete with we compete with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But we use the method of competition to better ourselves.
Yes.
So you can use competition as a method without absorbing the negative philosophy of competition.
Yeah.
Like me competing with you or you're competing with me.
Okay, want to see something? We take the word competition and we replace it with relationship, right? The reason why we have relationships is because it is only in relation to another person that you learn more about yourself. You see?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
So in competing with and against yourself, you put it on the line against somebody else in order to learn more about yourself and your own capabilities and your own powers. That's it.
Yes.
That's all it is.
100% correct. I wanted to go back to Jeet Kune Do, the martial arts impact on the present condition. I had a clip of Anderson Silva uses Jeet Kune Do and Wing Chun in the UFC, but like I said, Anderson Silva, Ferguson right now, which is what I call the crossing method and the intercepting method. Mm-hmm. Which, before I get your comment on that, I'll give you another secret.
I appreciate it.
My master introduced me to a master who I think this guy's a genius. His name is Su Don Chen, and he said martial arts is almost going to die because what's missing in martial arts is the intersection, the crossing. And you know what? As I've been researching and studying, he's right.
Yeah.
And I'll let you give your comment on that, and I'll come back to why I think he's right.
Well, he's right, but he will be proven wrong if people like you and I continue doing the work that we're doing.
Yes, correct.
You see, okay, he's right, but he will be proven wrong. Okay.
Have you gotten able to see these guys like Anderson Silva, Ferguson, and stuff like that?
Yeah. So well, yeah. So I mean, I know that Silva spent time. It's on video.
Yes.
With Inasano and what have you. But Silva was also on the receiving end of JKD methodology because when he had that horrendous leg break, that was with I forget the name of the fighter, Weidman, I think, right? Again, look at Weidman and what he did to Silva. Now take a step backwards. His striking coach is a guy named Ray Longo. Take a step back to Ray Longo, you go, oh crap, Paul Vunak. No wonder that guy did a knee destruction on poor Anderson Silva. It comes right out of Paul Vunak's playbook. Right?
Yeah. You just gave me an idea, and we got to get together on this. We're gonna take your Jeet Kune Do mind. I'm gonna take a little bit of my experience with MMA. We're gonna put all this terminology together, put it on video and books, and we'll make $1 million.
There you go.
We'll call it the new mixed martial arts secrets.
Yeah, man. But yeah, and you have to make sure that you use the word secrets because that's how you get more sales.
Yeah, that's how you attract it, right?
Yeah.
Before we end, I wanted to talk a little bit about, if you give us the honor and the pleasure again to have you, because there's so much more to talk. And next time that we have you, I really want to talk about different arts and their influence, like the Filipino martial arts, and myself having a background in Kung Tao Silat and Kali. We have a lot of, we're actually family. We have a lot of things in common.
Yeah. We have a lot of people in common.
Yeah, my teachers and my teachers' teachers are the Tauruses.
Right.
And a lot of research into the Kung Tao Silat and the Kali, and that influence into martial arts and into combat sports, that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that Rose Namajunas or whatever, she trains the double stick in Kali, right, to help her hands. Come on.
Yes. And this, and it's funny, you talk about ground fighting. Have you seen some of these guys, Harama and Buno? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah,
Oh my gosh. These guys, they're I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I've done some ground fighting, in my background, and some of these guys, they're like encyclopedias of ground techniques.
yeah. So Herman Suwanda, the late Herman Suwanda of Mandemuda Silat, he was I forget how the context, but his expression was be a berserk lawnmower on the ground, right. So yeah, and now of course it's not within the context of BJJ, and that's what most people are familiar with. And it's true. If you just watch pure Haramau, you might look at it and go, nah, that's not going to work. And you might not be wrong, but that doesn't mean that you discard it completely, because it's worked in other contexts. So you try to see, how is it possible for me to bring that and put it into this other context that I'm doing. Like, I happen to know that as efficient and effective as the BJJ is, when you pull a knife in the guard, right, a lot of BJJ goes out the window.
But you know what? It goes back to doing the research.
Yeah.
And being honest about your training. I've done, I don't know how many years in seminars and classes. My brother now is going to get his black belt from a legendary BJJ master. And I'm not going to mention the name, but I was at a gentleman's BJJ seminar, and this guy is like one of the highest in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's having a black belt test, and he said, okay, now you're going to do it with a person with a knife. And he turns around to his student and says, don't go to the ground. Okay? And
Really?
then he goes, yeah, he goes, now you have two multiple opponents. He says, watch your back. So what I realized is, if you go past the labels,
yeah,
you go to the fundamentals, the basics, the tactics,
yeah,
strategy,
yeah,
technology.
yeah.
And what are we talking about? For example, like the Haruma. I'll give you, for example, my perspective in Chinese martial arts. One of my teachers, master, and I'll mention his name because he doesn't care. You're the GK Dave rebel. He's the Kung Fu rebel. He's really upset at a lot of these Chinese masters because they BS so much that now when you try to get the real juice, it's hard because you have to sift through all the BS for a bunch of reasons. Right. For politics, for our parlor tricks. Okay. Okay.
I like that.
He says, but if you go back and you do the research and you can see what is the essence, what is the evolution, what is the innovation, what is tactically going to work, what is not tactically, what are the fundamentals to generate power. Right. You said something that's important. It's an art and science. The art and science is there. Mm-hmm. It's only what is our understanding of it and how well we can practice it.
Yeah.
Before we conclude, I would like to ask you if you have any, before your concluding comments, what do you think of the state of martial arts nowadays and the state of combat sports nowadays in 2020?
Well, so even though they are connected, I think they operate in two different worlds. So even though the combat sports is informed by the martial arts and perhaps even born out of the martial arts, they now, because what the MMA world has done is to take karate, kung fu, taekwondo, judo, whatever, and put it on the same level as football and American football and those things. And I've even heard that in the beginning stages, what they did with the UFC, they studied the NFL. They studied their promotional methods, grow the UFC and its popularity. Because if you remember, in the beginning, it was nowhere near as popular. It almost died out, but then they turned it around. So there are two different worlds. They are connected, but there are people who are firmly planted in either camp. You know, so there's a lesser amount of people who occupy the middle path, and there's more on this end or more on this end. But again, the people who take the time to understand how things are connected, and the people who are looking for the commonality of things, the middle path people, then they will be able to see, oh, so this is related to this in this way, and this is this. And then they'll go, why is there so much consternation in the combat sports world over this and this and this and this?
Yeah.
Right?
That's why I agree with you 100%. And thank you for those words. And that's why I'm glad we're having these dialogues. And we got to continue to have dialogues, keep communicating, keep researching, keep educating.
Yeah.
Because if we say, okay, let's say 305 Fights. 305 Fights, the sports league and entertainment, the entertainment part is the business part.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to market it with a good marketing and advertising plan. Like, I'll give you like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
They're actually following even more professional wrestling now because professional wrestling makes so much more money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one aspect. Then there's the sport. When I mean the sport, like baseball, basketball, whatever, that's an athletic endeavor where people are competing with rules. Okay, we see what that is. We classify that. We understand that. And then there's where it came from, the martial arts.
Yeah.
The philosophy.
Yeah.
The combat for self-defense.
Yeah. See, unfortunately, those things that you mentioned, they are not as sexy as the sport aspect. And because the sport aspect is what people see more of more often, I mean, because pre-coronavirus on pay-per-view, there was probably a UFC event almost every weekend. So that's what's in their face. So most people, uninformed as they and undereducated as they are, they think that's what it is. So back in the day, you get a parent calling for karate classes, right? Nowadays, if they call, they're calling about MMA classes because the word or the definition has worked its way into the vernacular. So that's what people are informed by, and that's it. So there has to be the work, like what you're doing, to keep the balance between the two. You cannot let one take over the other. There's got to be the balance. And so that takes us right back to where we started, where it's the balance, you know, this
Correct.
thing and this thing.
Yeah. Look, and you said something about, imagine this. Okay. We know Bruce Lee was an incredible actor. He was acting as a little kid, doing films as a little kid.
Yeah.
We know he was an incredible entertainer. You know, he was winning cha-cha trophies and dancing.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that in the movies, he was an entertainer. So people say, oh, he was just an actor. He couldn't fight. Well, no, hold on a second. Time out. But that's what happens because people don't know, they don't know how to catalog, how to define,
right,
how to, research, how to educate themselves.
Right.
Okay, this is the entertainment part.
Right.
He's not going to fight you the way he did in Enter the Dragon in real life. Anybody that's in a movie, you have to throw a punch a certain way in a movie so the punch can be seen. It's not going to be direct and short.
Right. Yeah.
Now, we go to the part where he's training, like you said, with shields, and he's doing the demonstration with the 1-inch punch in a tournament, right? So they say, oh, well, that was good in a tournament demonstration, or that's good for sport, but that's tournament, but not necessarily effective. Again, you haven't done your homework, you haven't educated, you're not categorizing, you're not doing these things.
Right.
We're talking of the art and science of war. And the art and science of war is to empower the mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
So I just would like to thank you
My pleasure.
for this conversation. I want to have you again so we can go a little bit further.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. And as soon as we start our events again, I'll invite you to our events, and we can laugh together and share together. Because you know what? Martial arts was around before we came. Martial arts will be here after we're gone.
That's it.
And I think I'm very fortunate that I know people like yourself, and met wonderful people, wonderful friends, and enjoying this journey of the martial arts. So I thank you very much today for the conversation.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
So we'll close it up. Thank you very much. 305 Fights, where the champions rise. 305, donde suben los campeones. Have a great day.
Fight Miami, the champion league.